I have here with me Del Hibbert, who's driven all the way up from Narrabeen today to attend the anti-carbon tax rally here in beautiful Port Macquarie. Now, I see you have a sign here which is very interesting. Would you like to explain that sign to our YouTube watchers?
Well, I just don't believe that the boats that are coming in now, they are not refugees, they are illegal people. And there's just so many of them, they're housing them in motels and that sort of thing. And many of our own poor are struggling to survive. And I think you look after your own first.
Do you base that, do you think that feeling of if they were a genuine refugee, they wouldn't have had the $20,000 to pay?
Exactly, yes, they wouldn't have had the money. So they know that once they get here, that some soft idiot, bleeding heart, will find them somewhere to live and feed them. And the thing I object, they're going to want to go back and bring the whole mob over for wives. And, you know, we've got enough of them here now, I believe.
And who will these people that are coming to Australia on the boats vote for?
Who would they vote for? Julia Gillard.
I see. Thank you very much indeed.
And that dreadful Chris Bowen.
That dreadful Chris Bowen. We have here David Goodridge, the national convener of the Australia Tea Party. David, you've driven down from Brisbane today to come to Port Macquarie, which I believe is Robert Oakeshott's own seat. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. We've done that before. We were here before Mr. Peter Edward Besseling's election campaign to make our views known then, and that seemed to work. We're here again to have another go.
And do you think Rob Oakespit deserves to have this seat?
When a person gets elected to Parliament, that doesn't just suddenly mean that they're all powerful. They're supposed to represent their constituents, they're supposed to represent their electors, no matter who they are. Now, we've got a lot of people in all political parties who treat their constituents as rubbish, but in this particular case, when you're an independent, you're not supposed to be for sale to whoever gives you the best deal. You're there supposed to look after the views and interests of your electorate. And the abuse of process is something that the Tea Party is extremely upset about in America, and we're extremely upset about here in Australia. Everybody that I've spoken to when I was last here absolutely said the elephant in the room for Peter Besseling was Robert Oakeshott. And Robert Oakeshott was the reason why they were so strongly threw Peter Besseling out, and that was I suppose, the referendum for Mr. Oakeshott from his electorate, and you know what? He completely ignored it.
Where's the former state member now?
Well, he's supposed to be over in his electorate office just down the road there. He's probably about 100 metres away.
And who's he employed as his chief of staff?
I do believe, surprise, surprise, that he's employed one Peter Edward Besseling to be his chief of staff. So we can't throw these guys out. If you throw them out, the voters throw them out, you know what happens? Some other politician will bring them back in because the people have no say. He's been hiding over in his electorate over there. I understand that he's been looking to move. I spoke to his landlord. He said he won't let him move. He's wanting to go to Taree so he doesn't get the abuse that he gets here in Port Macquarie. But he deserves that. That's what we should be doing. Don't be too polite. Say if something's offensive, say it's offensive. If it's really an abrogation of everything you believe, say it. Empower yourself, empower everybody else.
Good stuff. Thank you very much, David Goodridge. Thank you. The Reverend Peter Madden, who's driven up from Sydney, representing the Christian Democratic Party, to help organise the carbon tax anti-rally, or the rally against the carbon tax. Reverend Peter, would you please tell us about your motives for coming up here?
Well, number one, I stand against the lie. What we have is a government that has bold-faced lied to the Australian people. What we need to do is confront a government. They're accountable to the people. Unless we make them accountable, well then they're going to run riot, and we're already seeing them run riot. Carbon tax is the most bold-faced lie that we've seen of politicians for many, many years. And if we as Australians don't send a message to Julia Gillard, to Bob Brown, and to this anti-Australian coalition, well then they're not going to get the message. We've got to see an uprising of the people, a joining together, a unity of the people of Australia to say enough's enough. We will not countenance a lie, and we do not want to bring this curse upon the nation. I also stand because I don't believe that climate change is proven as a scientific fact. The jury is still out on that. and to actually tax the people based on a theory is an absolute travesty against justice and against democracy.
I'd like to congratulate you on that wonderful speech. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Reverend Peter Madden. You live in Oakeshott's electorate?
Yes, I live down at Harrington, and everybody that I've spoken to in this electorate is very concerned with Mr Oakeshott's whole attitude towards this carbon tax, and I will do everything possible in my capacity with the fishing party to get Mr Oakeshott to change his mind. If it means Mr Oakeshott losing his seat, so be it.
I understand that there's a petition circulating now that wants to recall Oakeshott's seat on the basis of, what's the basis of the petition?
Well, the basis of the petition is that they need to get 50% plus one of the electorate to get Parliament to be recalled and to recall Mr Oakeshott's seat and let the people
force a by-election.
And force a by-election and let the people have their say.
What do you think is Oakeshott's motive for betraying his electors by supporting a Gillard government that's introducing this carbon tax?
Well, I think it'd have to be a financial incentive.
Is it to do with his pension, possibly?
Possibly that, but I've got a sneaky suspicion that Robert Oakeshott is a deep down greenie. He has always had green credentials here in this seat, and I think to get around that, he has to support the ALP government, which is in bed with the Greens. So I think he has to do that.
Do you think it's likely that the threat of this petition might turn Rob Oakeshott's mind from his socialist agenda? I've had my doubts. I think Rob Oakeshott now is determined to further his Rob Oakeshott ego, and I think the embarrassment of him doing a backflip now, I do not think that Rob Oakeshott would be able to handle that. What sort of pressure has the fishing party put on Oakeshott?
Well, the pressure that we've sort of applied is that on the 18th of March, just prior to the state election, we had I tried to organise a rally here in Port Macquarie on the same spot here, but I didn't get the media attention as Katter and everybody else has got. But the people who did turn up, which was very few, there wasn't one kind word for Robert Oakeshott. Not one.
Do you think that if we can get this, if this petition can be got out by the Tea Party and yourself, the fishing party, do you think that there's 50% of his electorate will vote to have him recalled from Parliament?
I think there's more than 50%. Because, as I was just saying, when I did my little purpose spiel here back in March, I went up the street because nobody came down here. I went up the street and actually stood in the main street for 2 hours and asked, I estimated about 100 people. Only 2 people out of that 100 had a kind word for Rob Oakeshott, and only 2 people backed the carbon tax out of 100 people. Now that was before the election, and that was before Mr Oakeshott has voted with the government for the carbon tax. So I would imagine now the frustration here in Port Macquarie would be absolutely astounding.
Thank you very much. Bob Smith, Australian Fishing Party.
I'll sign that across.
The Discord that we have over here on our left, this is not an organisation that we support. In addition to that, we have nothing against the Queen. We do not believe that the Queen wants to tax us, carbon tax. While I'm here, I would ask you, if you wouldn't mind, to just ignore them. And we have the police here today.
Come in closer.
I've read the literature.
I'm here with Michael Darby, Australian bush poet. Michael, would you please give us a little bit of a rundown on this crew?
There's a mob called LaRouches who are the enemies of civilisation, but most of all they've taken it upon themselves to attack Her Majesty the Queen in the most offensive and dishonest fashion. And it doesn't take anyone with common sense to know that in Australia we have a constitutional monarchy where Her Majesty the Queen has no influence on politics. So people who say that Her Majesty is to blame for carbon tax are seriously and terminally delusional. And the LaRouches are hopelessly delusional. They should go away, disappear, and preferably disappear up their own fundamental orifices.
Thank you very much, Michael W. Bushpile. I'm here with Dick Pearson. Dick Pearson's driven up from Sydney today to be present at the anti-carbon tax rally, and he's got this marvellous hat here and he's got this marvellous sign. What have you got to say about carbon tax, Dick?
My main gripe is that it hasn't got a mandate to be introduced. I mean, I don't like the idea of the tax. I certainly don't like being lied to before the election. If it's put to the vote, fair enough. If people vote for it, vote it in with a mandate to the government, I won't like it, but I'll lump it. But sure as eggs, I don't like being told lies before an election and then have something shoved down my throat afterwards.
Thank you very much, Dick from Sydney. I'm here with Mr. and Mrs. Ryder, who've driven up from Sydney today to attend this anti-carbon tax rally. Mr. Ryder, what have you got to say about the carbon tax?
Well, a carbon tax is just an immoral tax. You have to process every mineral from the earth. They're all oxides. You need to put them with carbon, and what comes off is carbon dioxide. So it's a double tax. This is to destroy all the industry, all civilization. That's what it's about. But what my main concern is that I don't believe that politicians who promise things or elected representatives, when they promise something, that's their bond to the electorate. And I believe that it's a statutory declaration to the Australian people. And when you're actually put into Parliament, you must honour that. So Rob Oakeshott, he's not honoured. The population here said no, and he's saying, I don't care what you said, that's yes. My wife came from that sort of society in Eastern Europe, where they came in and five communists or five independents in the Czech Republic went across with the communists, and they called it democratic socialism. Then what they did, when they got the Senate, which is coming up now, they voted in not to vote them out ever again. 40 years later they were still in power until the Berlin Wall fell in 1989. So 49 to 89, by doing what Rob Oakeshott did, they brought in socialism in Eastern Bloc Europe. That's why I'm here.
Thank you, Mr. Ryder. Okay. Well said. I'm here with Linda, who is a local in Rob Oakeshott's election. You voted for Rob?
The election was last time.
And your T-shirt here, this T-shirt was worn at an election rally for Rob Oakeshott? Handing out how to votes for Rob Oakeshott. And now this is how, what portion of the population in Port Macquarie and surrounds feel the same way about Rob Oakeshott as you do?
Just about everyone feels the same way as me.
Do you know there's a petition about to be circulated that calls for a recall of Oakeshott's seat and that he be dismissed from Parliament and a new election be called? How many people do you know that would want to sign this petition?
Many people.
Many people. Thank you very much, ma'am.